my name is Matthew Pfeiffer with MattPfeifferCoaching.com. Welcome to my YouTube channel. On this channel, I make videos about toxic, narcissistically abusive relationships. And if you have a question that you would like for me to answer for you, send it to justaskmatt@MattPfeifferCoaching.com. Again, that is justaskmatt@MattPfeifferCoaching.com. Just give me several days to get back to it. And also make sure you keep the email 2 to 3 paragraphs max. You're very direct and to the point of what your question actually is. If it's too long, if it's too lengthy, or if I don't understand what you're asking, unfortunately, I will not be able to get to it. Also, make sure you hit the subscribe notification, and you also hit the bell notification so you're notified each and every time I upload a new video. I upload videos on this channel 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. So with that being said, let's get into this next email. This email is very interesting. It comes from a person who is not dealing directly with a narcissist, but dealing with someone who's they're dating, or I believe they're engaged with someone who has dealt with narcissistic abuse in the past. And so this person is wondering how to properly court and how to properly date and be in a relationship with this person without triggering them. So with that being said, let's get into this email. So this email reads, my fiance and I have been together for 2 years. She was previously married once to someone who cheated on her and abandoned her and his child right after the child was born. Her second marriage was to a narcissist who was very abusive physically, mentally, and emotionally. She has no relationship with her father, and her mother is a sociopath. So you can see that there's a lengthy pattern of abusive behavior, and even though we're talking about physical abuse from one person, the betrayal of another person when we're talking about this person being cheated on, and then also a lot of childhood wounds in this woman's life as well. So this email continues. She has a very hard time being vulnerable and opening up, to be fully honest, and has admitted she tells a lot of white lies. So on one hand, it's great that she's able to even admit that. One of the things that we have to understand, that people who have this type of background, who have significant trauma in the background, significant betrayal in the background, significant relationship trauma in the background, it's very easy, it's very common to develop trust issues. And then also we have a lot of childhood wounds with a father who was not present in her life and a mother in her life that was a sociopath. So naturally there's going to be a lot of childhood wounds. And when we have childhood wounds, one of the biggest side effects with childhood wounds is to develop trust issues. And also, not just trust issues, but also an avoidant attachment style. People with an avoidant attachment style, it's very, very difficult for them to open up. Quite often they do want to be vulnerable, but keep in mind, we're talking about some significant people that you're supposed to trust, right? 2 husbands, a mother, and a father. People who you're supposed to open up with, right? Let's just say that this person is 30 years old. I don't know how old this person is, but just to put a number on it. So we have 30 years of experience of this person being burnt over and over again by people who, keep in mind, you're supposed to trust your husband, right? Both of them. You're supposed to trust your mother and you're supposed to trust your father, and they've all burnt her, right? And so naturally it's going to develop trust issues and this avoidant attachment style. So even though there's a part of her that wants to open up, there's going to be a fear there, because each and every single time that she's done that ever since she was a child, right, it has always caused concern. It's always caused an issue. So naturally there's going to be a wound there that is going to tell her that her opening up and her becoming more vulnerable is only going to cause more pain. So let's continue with this email. My question would be, is how do I continue to break down those barriers for her to gain my full trust, for her to be able to open up and be vulnerable and stop the white lies? So number one, it is not your responsibility to break down the barriers. You allow for her to come to you. So some of the things that's important for you to, and it's great. So let's talk about some things, some building blocks that you guys are doing that are very, very good, right? Let's start there. The fact that she's even able to tell you some of the things that are happening here, right? Some of the things that have happened in her past. The fact that she's even able to open up to tell you that she's told some white lies, right, are all steps in the right direction. Of course, no one wants to be lied to on one hand, but on the other hand, the fact that she's even able to open up and tell you those things, right, it's a step in the right direction. So it's important that you, as the significant other in this situation, and this is something that you're going to have to partner with her on, you're very aware of the atmosphere that you have created. Not saying that you would do this intentionally, but you have to be very aware of the atmosphere that you create to allow for her to feel comfortable opening up. Being very aware of your body language, being very aware of your reaction when you do hear things. There's a reason why people tell white lies. They don't feel comfortable, right? Once again, not saying that you have done anything, but we have to remember the conditioning that she's been under, right, since she was a child, has told her that anytime that she's spoken up, told her truth, that anytime that she's been vulnerable, that it has caused pain. So anytime she even wants to be vulnerable, she might even want to, right? But the conditioning tells her, right, that vulnerability causes pain. So you need to create the atmosphere that is going to allow for her, right, being very aware of your reaction when you hear things that you don't like. Because one of the things that happens quite often, once again, whether it's intentional or unintentional, quite often people say they want to hear the truth, but when they hear the truth that they don't like, we react, right? It's natural. Now, with that being said, when we react with someone who has more of an avoidant personality type, right, it causes them to go back into that shell, because they want to make sure that they protect themselves. Because, again, the people that should have been there and should have accepted her unconditionally, especially as a child, right, weren't there for her. And so this is also something that you're going to want to address with a therapist, right? This is something I would be very proactive with. I would talk to a therapist. You possibly might also want to do individual therapy with each other, for each other, right? On working on communicating properly. Because when we're talking about people who have this level of sensitivity, right? And again, there's reasons behind it, right? We're not talking about that there's no reason why she's behaving this way, right? We understand why this is happening, but we also understand, right, on both ends, that vulnerability, guess what? It's a necessary component in a healthy relationship. So communication is going to be very, very important. Not just that you do communicate, but how you communicate. And so it's going to be very important that you guys partner up together, and possibly with a therapist as well, on the best methods to communicate. Now, some of the ways that I would tackle this, some of the things that I'll share with you just in this video that can help right off the bat, is to have proactive communication, right? Some of the things that you want to do. So it's very common for couples to fight over something like the dishes, right? So let's use the dishes as an example. So you go to her, and you may have done this at some point, right? You never do the dishes, right? I'm always doing the dishes. And that's very common for people to use the word always and never, right? To talk in absolutes with very black and white thinking. I'll do a whole nother video on black and white thinking some other time, right? But when you say that, right, it causes that person to they immediately put their hands up and go into defense mode, right? Am I saying that you or anyone else who does that is doing it intentionally? No, right? It's very common. However, right, we want to replace the words always and never with seems like and it feels like, right? So it feels like I'm starting to feel very overwhelmed with doing the dishes as often as I do, right? It seems like I'm doing them a great majority of the time. Right. And for someone who wants to come out of their shell, right, who has levels of empathy, for those of you who are watching this and are dealing with a narcissist, this won't work with a narcissist, right? But someone who has levels of empathy, right, it gives them the ability to say, well, I can help out more often, right? And it gives them the opportunity to chime in rather than getting defensive. Part 2 to that, right, when we're talking about proactive communication on how to communicate properly with someone, or to be able to have a maintenance level of communication, is to every once in a while, every Sunday or however often you guys just kind of relax. Maybe not every single time you guys are doing this, but maybe every other time, or maybe even once a month. But I would make sure that I would do this consistently, right? And ask the question on a scale from 1 to 10, right? How have I been as a husband, right? Or for the ladies who are watching, how have I been as a wife, right? And they will say, let's say this person says a 7, right? Well, great. Well, what have I done that you've enjoyed? What has given me? And you want to do this in a very non-judgmental way. This is just as much of an exercise for you as it is for the other person, right? To not being judgmental, to not getting defensive, right? Not getting in your feelings, but to allow for this person to open up and to express for themselves, and for them to get used to just opening up, right? So you just say, allow for them to just talk. Well, I think 7, you were very loving each and every time I went to work. It made me feel so appreciated. And you want to pay attention. You want to listen, right? Because those things are the things that this person likes and this person enjoys. Now, when they say the good thing, you also want to ask, well, what could I do better? Why a 7 and not a 10, right? And they might say, well, the other day I said that, I wanted to go here, and you got really defensive and made me feel on guard, and made me feel like I was walking on eggshells, things like that, right? So you want to pay attention not only to the good things, because when people are praising us, it feels really good, but you also want to take the criticism as feedback, as opportunities, right? And allow for, and what this does is it's going to help both of you, right? It's going to allow for you to get used to listening, right? Taking in feedback. And it's also going to allow for your fiance to get used to opening up, right? And you're going to, these are good, healthy strategies in any relationship, any marriage, right? Any relationship for that matter. So make sure that you're doing this on a regular basis, because this is going to help the two of you, right? Make sure that this relationship is steering in the right direction. And this is something, again, right, that communication, when it comes to a marriage, it's very important that you structure it and that you have regular talks like this to help with the regular maintenance of relationship. This is because people avoid these type of conversations. This is a lot of the reason why you have some marriages, right, non-narcissistic marriages, that after 15, 20 years, like, oh, I'm not happy anymore, I don't want to do this anymore, right? Because they have not had regular types of discussions. So thank you. Thank you very much for writing in. For those of you who have questions for me, make sure you send it to justaskmatt@mattpfeiffercoaching.com. Again, that is justaskmatt@mattpfeiffercoaching.com. If you would like my help, all of my links are down below. And I will talk to you in the next video.